All right, let's just jump right into it. What if I told you that everything we've built, our entire civilization, could be wiped clean off the map, not in 1,000 years, not even in 100, but in about 6 hours? It sounds crazy, I know, but we're about to explore a theory that says the Earth's entire crust periodically slips, plunging whole continents into new climates and basically hitting the reset button on history, all in less time than your average workday.
But here's the thing. To really get our heads around this, we're not going to start with geology or some abstract concept. No. We're going to start at a crime scene, with a piece of evidence that seems so impossible it practically screams for a radical explanation. And this is our victim. Meet the Beresovka mammoth. Now, according to this theory, you're not just looking at a fossil, you're looking at the smoking gun. This is Exhibit A, the forensic proof of a sudden, planet-altering catastrophe.
What makes this mammoth so important is just how impossibly well preserved it is. I mean, get this. Investigators found undigested buttercups still in its mouth, meaning it died mid-chew. For the tissue to be this perfect, its huge, multi-ton body had to have been frozen solid in 4 hours max. The American Frozen Foods Institute literally called this feat utterly impossible by any known natural process. It was flash frozen while being smothered in a supersonic flood of muck and silt. So you have to ask, how in the world could something like that even happen?
Well, the theory gives us a terrifying answer. It says the entire crust of the Earth, the whole skin of the planet, shifted by 90 degrees. In just a handful of hours, sunny Siberia was violently dragged into the Arctic Circle. The temperature would have plummeted by something like 180 degrees Fahrenheit, almost instantly.
An instantaneous crustal shift. I know, it sounds like something straight out of a disaster movie. But the theory actually proposes a very specific geophysical mechanism that could make it happen. So let's pop the hood and look at the engine that drives this planetary catastrophe.
It really all boils down to a balancing act, happening in a thin, molten layer about 60 miles right under our feet. Normally, something called magnetohydrodynamic energy, let's just call it MHD energy, keeps this layer acting like a thick, almost solid plastic. It's a lock, holding the crust firmly in place. But if that MHD energy were to fail for some reason, that layer would instantly liquefy, turning into the perfect frictionless lubricant.
So, if that layer turns to lubricant, is there some force waiting to take advantage of it? Oh yeah, it's this number. This is the colossal, non-stop torque that's being generated by the off-axis ice caps in Greenland and Antarctica. You see, their immense weight is constantly trying to pull the entire 60-mile thick crust of the Earth towards the equator. The only thing holding it all back is that MHD lock.
And that brings us to the trigger, which the theory says happens in 3 steps. First, our entire solar system periodically passes through what's called a galactic null zone, which weakens the Earth's internal MHD energy. Second, with that energy field weakened, the lock fails, and that molten layer becomes a slippery lubricant. And third, that massive torque from the ice caps is suddenly unleashed. There's nothing holding it back anymore. The result is just unthinkable. The entire skin of the planet slips over its core, shifting by up to 90 degrees in as little as 6 hours. Lush tropical continents become frozen poles. Deserts become ocean floors. It is a total planetary reset.
Now, if you're thinking this is all some wild, one-off hypothesis, the theory goes even deeper. It suggests this isn't a one-time event, and the proof? It's been hiding in plain sight, encoded in our most ancient myths. It basically reinterprets these stories as literal, though fragmented, historical records of past cataclysms.
Let's just take the story of Adam and Eve. In this retranslation, they aren't the first 2 humans. They're a widower and his daughter, survivors of a continental collapse that happened about 11,500 years ago. And the serpent in the garden? That's not some tempting snake. It's a symbol for the destructive ocean that swallowed their homeland. The cherubims guarding Eden with a flaming sword? The theory says those are ancient glyphs for the continent's foundations, which were destroyed by earthfire, earthquakes and volcanoes causing it to sink.
And you see this pattern pop up across different cultures. Noah's flood is seen as a literal account of the next cataclysm, about 7,000 years ago. You've got the ancient city of Tiahuanaco in Bolivia. It has clear evidence of once being a seaport, but today it sits at 12,500 feet. That's some serious crustal upheaval. And even the Hindu god Vishnu, known for his 10 resurrections from the waters, well, this theory sees that as a historical record keeper for 10 separate resets of civilization.
Okay, so this all raises a massive question, right? If these civilization-ending disasters are a recurring, predictable cycle, why on earth don't we know about it? Why isn't this the most studied subject in human history? Well, the theory proposes a pretty dark reason. The knowledge is being actively suppressed.
So let me introduce you to the Gardeners, or the Watchers. According to the story, this is a secret elite group, descendants from a previous highly advanced civilization that survived one of the resets. They supposedly hold the unbroken knowledge of this cycle, and their job, their mandate, isn't just to survive the next one, it's to manage humanity's periodic return to square one.
So how would they manage humanity like that? By suppressing key technologies. We're talking about things like anti-gravity propulsion and clean, limitless energy that you can generate directly from the Earth's magnetic fields. By hiding this kind of knowledge, they make sure that after every cataclysm, the few survivors are thrown back into a new Stone Age. They're forced to waste centuries just rediscovering things like fire and electricity.
Their tactics are all about maintaining control. They hide the timeline so nobody else can prepare. They conceal the blueprints for survival shelters and the locations of safe zones. And after each reset, they destroy any lingering historical or technical records to maintain their monopoly on knowledge and make sure the cycle of ignorance starts all over again. Now, this might all sound like some wild mix of ancient history and conspiracy theory, but this is where the theory brings it right into our living rooms, right into the present day. It claims that we, right now, are living in the precursor period for the very next event, and the clock is ticking.
So that leads to the most important question of all, doesn't it? Are there any warning signs, anything we can see happening right now?
According to the theory, the answer is a chilling yes. The first major warning sign supposedly began 300 years ago, with the slow but accelerating decay of the Earth's magnetic field. The final 7-year warning will be when something called the Chandler's Wobble, that's the Earth's natural rotational wobble, measurably speeds up. Based on all of this, the theory gives a terrifyingly specific window for the next event, sometime between 2025 and 2050.
And look, some of this is based on data we can actually measure. Our planet's magnetic field, the very thing that powers that MHD lock, has verifiably decreased in strength by over 35% in just the last few centuries. From the theory's point of view, this is the primary sign. It's evidence that the lock is weakening and the lubricant is being prepared.
But you know, the most chilling warning sign presented by the theory isn't geological at all. It tries to connect that decaying magnetic field to a breakdown in our own societal morality. It cites a scientific experiment where mice, when placed in a low magnetic environment, turned criminal, exhibiting end cruelties, including cannibalism and around-the-clock forcible rape. And that leaves us with one final, deeply unsettling question. Is the rising chaos we see in our own world not just a social problem, but a planetary symptom?